Right, skeletal muscle is very important. It helps maintain our balance. It contains glycogen, which we can store there for energy. But important points for skeletal muscle: it contains myoglobin, which is a protein similar to hemoglobin that holds on to oxygen inside the muscles. Because hemoglobin drops off oxygen at the muscles, and then hemoglobin picks up carbon dioxide because the muscles are kind of giving off carbon dioxide because of all the work they're doing. And it's a kind of acidic environment, and it's really warm there, so that's why hemoglobin gives up the oxygen. And when hemoglobin gives up the oxygen, it picks up carbon dioxide, and carbonic anhydrase turns that carbon dioxide into bicarbonate and hydrogen in the hemoglobin, and that's how it carries it out. And then the myoglobin picks up that oxygen that it gave off and provides it to the skeletal muscle. The cells in skeletal muscle are multinucleate, and the molecules essential for contraction in muscle cells to happen, these skeletal muscles, are calcium and ATP. And then the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is kind of like, I guess, a cover on the cells, is what holds the calcium that makes muscle contraction possible. So let's take a look at this in a bigger scale and then see how it all happens. So if we take a look at actin, actin is a protein found in skeletal muscle, and it's kind of like a twisted beaded necklace. Actin has these myosin binding sites, and when calcium is present, it binds to troponin, which is this little bead kind of blocking those binding sites, along with tropomyosin, which is like a long kind of chain. And what happens when calcium binds to troponin, this chain moves out of the way, so all of these little binding sites are available for myosin. So if you take a look here, these little kind of hands kind of coming out. Myosin looks like this. It has two heads and a tail. Myosin binds to the actin at those binding sites. So this is the myosin binding site. And it makes contraction possible. And I don't know why that got so blurry all of a sudden. There we go. Okay. So how is all this possible? Well, we learned earlier when we're going over nervous system that it's all possible because the brain communicates with our muscles. And how does it do that? Through one nerve. It's not like the autonomic system, which is dual innervation. It's just one nerve. So this one nerve is stimulated by an action potential. That action potential opens calcium voltage gated channels, and calcium floods in here, which is the axon terminal of a neuron or a nerve cell. And then what happens is acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter in these vesicles, leaves the axon terminal and through exocytosis, and that creates another action potential because these ligand gated channels are depolarized, and then sodium can come in. So if we go back to our knowledge about depolarization and action potentials and all that, if we have enough acetylcholine here hitting these ligand gated channels, then we're going to have enough sodium in here to reach threshold and then depolarize the cell. When we do depolarize the cell, this action potential moves, propagates through the cell, and it hits this thing called a T-tubule. The T-tubule has a DHP receptor, and what that does, it is connected mechanically to the RYR receptor on the sarcoplasmic reticulum. If you guys remember, the sarcoplasmic reticulum is this thing kind of covering the cell, and what that's going to do, it's going to encourage the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is a store of calcium, to be released. Now, again, when we release that calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, it can go into the cytoplasm, and then it's going to bind to troponin, and then that troponin is going to move the tropomyosin out of the way so that actin can bind to myosin and we can have a contraction. And that's it.